remember my mom finally getting me on the phone. And I just remember, and I can get emotional. I might be the first person to cry on your podcast,
okay.
but she just said to me, "You're alive."
Yeah.
Of course, at that time, of course I'm alive. And I just remember that feeling when I hung up the phone, just thinking, man, I'm not just hurting myself.
Sure.
I'm hurting a lot of people.
Welcome to the Royal Flush Podcast. My name is John Overy. I am the VP of Sales here at Royal Flush. In this podcast, we're going to cover the ins and outs of our ever-growing state-of-the-art pipelining company. Additionally, we're going to bring local entrepreneurs and people from our area to have fantastic conversations that ideally cover the 3 I's. Interesting people that have interesting stories that spark really interesting conversations. In this episode, we speak with Adam Casey, who's a local guy and runs a phenomenal state-of-the-art Amazon business where he buys and sells lots of different merchandise. But more importantly, Adam's story of a young boy being adopted, battling addiction, going through recovery, starting a family is absolutely amazing. Have a listen. Hope you like it. Subscribe. Stay tuned. We are here with Adam Casey, who is my brother-in-law's brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So we're brother-in-laws.
Times 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, in-laws.
So Adam, we like to start with our childhood, right? And so my opening question to everybody, including you, is give me kind of a broad overview of your childhood and maybe one specific childhood memory that really sticks out to you.
Man, went right there, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
there.
My childhood was awesome. I grew up as a young kid with a great family, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
You're in-law to them,
Mm-hmm.
and we grew up in a little town, Rehoboth, around here, and it was just a good life. The twist to it that didn't affect me as a kid was like I was adopted as a baby right out of the hospital, planned, all that stuff. But but growing up, like you would have never known. I ended up in an amazing situation with an amazing family, and like it never felt like an adoption type of situation.
Yeah.
So, we all were really close growing up, and yeah, I don't know. I just had a lot of fun playing and sports and all that kind of stuff, and lived at home with my mom and my sister. And my dad they got divorced. My dad had another marriage and had more kids, which turned into more siblings, and so it was just like, surrounded by family constantly. It's not like today seems a lot crazier with the kids, and everybody's got multiple friends and friend groups,
Yep.
and sports all over the place. Mm-hmm. It was just like we played at the local town, baseball field, and when you hung out with friends or family, it was just family. It was your cousins.
Yep,
that's
exactly.
who you hung out with.
I was the same way. I had a cousin group of, I don't know. My dad's the oldest of 7 kids. So my grandmother had 34 grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
And so it was, we had the 3 or 4 that was my group of age, all born with probably 6 months with each other. My sister, right? So everybody it was 15 cousins when you came together, and that was who you hung out with.
That's who you hung out with.
Yeah.
Those are your friends. If
Yep.
you went somewhere, that's what it was. It was a sleepover. It was at your aunt's house or
Yep.
whatever. It was never, nowadays with my kids, it's like hard to even squeeze into family time sometimes because they're like, oh, my friend from school this, or my teammate, and it's like, oh, okay. So it gets tough. So, but it was a cool situation for me. Like, you don't realize growing up if things are different than other families. Like, that's all you really know.
Yep.
And like my parents being divorced was just like, hey, this is great. I have 2 families to go spend time with. I have, my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family, and we just had different experiences at both.
Yep.
And in a way, it was kind of like doubling the fun,
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
this is great.
yeah, this
right?
is great. Yeah, I got two different avenues to go down, and both sides were awesome and close and tight, and same thing with the cousins on both sides. So, yeah, I don't know. As far as one specific memory, I don't know that I have I don't know if I have one that I could put a finger on that would say, hey, this has defined my childhood.
Yeah.
But, I would just say sports, playing sports, messing around with friends, doing that, and up until like 13, I guess everything was pretty innocent and fun and playing sports. And, that was probably my biggest memory is that.
Yeah.
So.
Kyle, I've told you my childhood memory, I think, and it's a Christmas gift. And so I remember I was maybe 10 years old, and I don't know if you remember or if any friends you had this gift. I woke up and it was the Fisher-Price 3-in-1 tournament table. Do you remember this gift?
No, I didn't.
This
get
was
that gift.
a pool table, air hockey table, and ping pong in one.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought this was the greatest gift in the history of my life. And this memory, I can remember walking down the stairs and seeing it. And, it was probably, I don't know, 4 feet by 3 feet. But as a little kid, it seemed like this was a professional table. And it seemed like it took up, my whole entire room.
Yeah.
And I will remember to the day I die going down those stairs and seeing that little pool table. And I thought it was the greatest thing in my life. That's
I remember
like the memory.
one of the gift memories I have as a kid was being young, and I'm old now, and so cable was a big deal.
Oh,
when I
okay. You
was a
remember
kid.
like kind of the first time you got it?
So when I got Nessun,
Oh, yes.
I had Nessun added to the cable package for like part of my Christmas gift.
I remember. Okay, listen. I have a great story about this. I remember this. So I grew up playing baseball. I'm just a couple years younger than you, and I had loved baseball. So this is like mid 90, say 94, 95, 96. I'm in like 5th, 6th grade, and I'm a diehard baseball fan. But Nessun was a pay station.
Yeah.
And my cheap dad, if you're listening to this, you know you're cheap. Okay. My cheap dad said every year, like, okay, if the Red Sox are in contention, like after the All-Star break, we'll get Nessun. Now, what do you think it was? It had to be what, $2 a month? I don't know. It probably was so cheap,
Yeah,
right?
it was probably
So
cheap.
they stunk in the early midnight. They stunk, so we didn't get it. But I remember it was, I don't know, maybe like 98, 99 after they got Pedro, like it became part of the regular package.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, like, I get to watch all these baseball games, and it was the coolest thing
Oh, it
in
was
the
great.
world.
It was fantastic. Yeah, when I got that as a paid, she added it on as my gift, and I was just in heaven. That just completely changed my life. Because it used to always be on local
Yeah,
air.
yep.
And then they switched all these games over to the cable station, and I was so depressed. And so that was a pretty good memory of
Yeah.
a gift that I got.
I
back in
remember
the day.
something like that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you had a great normal childhood. If you don't mind, let's talk about you being adopted, because I think that's a pretty cool, unique thing, and there's a lot of people out there that have been adopted. When did you find out that you were adopted?
I've always known. There was never a day that I remember.
So there's not like a moment you remember sitting down.
There was never a moment sitting down. The only memory I really have of it is going through like photo albums.
Okay.
And I think that was like my mom and dad's way of talking about it before I even knew what it meant. Was just like, hey, this is the day we brought you home from the hospital.
Gotcha.
This is here's us at a Christmas party at the adoption agency used to have for families that adopted kids.
Gotcha.
So I think they kind of had a little network of people together
Sure.
that they would hang out with. And so that was like, I don't know, the first time I can remember even talking about it was looking at those photo albums. But I was probably, from a baby up, I don't know, maybe I was 3 or 4
So they
years
were
old.
almost, sounds like they were subliminally exposing you to, hey, you're unique, not in a good or a bad way, but maybe a little different than everybody else here. But let's expose you and tell you about the story of how the amazing way that we got you to be part of our
Yeah,
family.
I think that's what it was. It was just, this is an amazing way. This is the best day of our life. Here's where, we were blessed with, to get you, to bring you home. There was never like, I don't ever remember them saying that it was different or
Sure.
other people didn't come home that way.
Yeah.
Like, again, it was like, oh, that's the way everybody comes
Yeah,
home, I
yep.
think. I thought at the time. But, looking back on it, there was never a moment where they're like, hey, Adam, we need to sit you down and tell you something. So, I appreciate that. And there's so many different ways, and there's probably people that may be touching a nerve now of being in that situation.
Yep.
And, I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way to do it, but that was just the way that they went. And, so I've never gone through my life feeling, second class or not a part of or any, difference than any other kid ever felt.
Yeah.
My mom would always say, you were picked. So you should feel good about that.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah, that's a really cool way to
pretty
look
good
at
way
it.
to look at it. You were picked. There's a lot of kids that parents just got stuck with.
Yeah, give me that one right
Yeah.
there.
So that's the way I kind of looked at it, and it never ever was an issue for me. I never had like, in the back of my mind, I guess I thought at one time like, oh man, I must be the king and queen of England's lost child, some movie star.
Yeah,
that's,
right. Trying to
obviously
maybe make up a
when I
scenario in your head,
making
right?
my scenario that this big grand experience that I'm gonna, that's just lost somewhere, and but never was I like searching for anything. Like I never had any holes to fill, which
Sure.
was nice, and it just goes to show the kind of family I'm in.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like it was never a question of anything. I never, there was never feeling like I got shortchanged. If anything, it was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt super fortunate to be in such a good situation.
Yeah, yeah. And then so let's say you're a young man, and you got yourself in a little bit of trouble when you were younger.
I got myself in a lot of trouble when I was younger.
Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so when I was, a big part of my life today stems from back when I was a kid. When I reached the ripe old age of 13 years old, I found alcohol for the first time, and I'll never forget. Well, it was an instant blackout that day. Like I drank so much. I think it was like Zima or something, something lame. Like I wish I had a good story that I went and got like Johnny Walker Black Label and got trashed, But it was like drinking Zima with my sister's friends at a camp out, and I remember that day. Well, I don't even remember. I remember the party, and then I remember waking up in the morning, half in a tent, half out of a tent, in a parking lot with like gravel stuck to my face. That like when I wiped it off, it left like indents. Mm-hmm. And I just kept rubbing my face and getting it all off, and like realizing like I had no idea what happened last night. Mm-hmm. But I was like, that was awesome. Yeah. I can't wait to do that again. And I don't even know what I couldn't wait to do again, because I didn't even really remember the night. I just remembered like, I don't know, just not feeling, I guess, not having any insecurities or doubts or I just let loose for the night for the first time. And I was always very calculated and careful of my moves. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time I was able to really just let loose and go about it. So
Gotcha.
But that led to, me, for me, it led into an instant obsession with that feeling. Mm-hmm. And I continued to chase that for what turned out to be another 17 years of just blackouts and chasing that feeling of letting loose and letting go and hiding from reality and all that stuff. And I don't know, I got into a lot of, and I just kept getting in trouble. Like that was my MO. All my other friends would drink like I drank, but didn't get in trouble. For some reason, I just kept getting in trouble, but it wasn't enough to stop. Where most people are like, oh, if I got in that kind of trouble, I would have stopped, or I would have, hey, how would you do that same mistake again? And I just wasn't able to like put the brakes on. And I realized very early, by 16, probably 16, I realized that when I wanted to stop, I couldn't. And I can remember I was, I say it a lot, but I pretty much tried. I was trying to quit drinking from the moment I started.
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
But I never could. And
so you were intelligent enough to know that you liked the experience, the feeling, the everything that goes around with drinking, but also to know that I probably shouldn't be doing this, or that I can't stop. You were intelligent enough to see it, but you just couldn't implement it or do it.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it. And a big part of that was my mom recognized her father was an alcoholic, and so she recognized the behavior instantly. Mm-hmm. So I was 15. My mom's like, "Hey, I think you're an alcoholic." And I'm like, "I think you're crazy, Mom."
Yeah, Mom, you don't know what you're talking about.
So, but like, what really like grabbed my attention was the fact that I would promise her and mean it. Like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I could see how much it hurts you. I could see the trouble I got in. Yeah, I just blacked out and made a mess of the house and stuff. And I swore that I wouldn't do it again. And I'm 16 years old saying, "Mom, I'm never going to do that again." And like 2 days later, I'd come home.
Because you didn't want to hurt your mom's feelings, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to hurt the mom's feelings. I didn't want to go down that road. I'm still like, in school and a lot of like DARE programs and all that stuff I'm listening to. And I knew it was like not the road to go down, but for some reason I just returned to it and returned to it and returned to it. It was just the allure would suck me in an unconscious way that I wouldn't even, I would convince myself that it was okay somehow. I would talk myself into it constantly. Mm-hmm. And it was just like baffling for me. It was baffling for my family, looking back on it. And like now that I have kids too, and I'm like, man, like my kids are young, but I was young then.
Sure.
So like a 15-year-old kid, like I can't imagine kind of what my parents were thinking and feeling when I was going through all that.
Yeah, that's probably a really good perspective now as a dad.
Yeah.
I mean, we both have young kids. Could you imagine yourself? Well, you did it, but could you imagine yourself, coming home and you see your son doing this? You'd probably strangle him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd want to. And my parents, wanted to strangle me, to the point of just like I don't know what to do. At some point, you just hit a point where you just say, I have no idea. I don't know what to do. I'm just baffled,
Yep.
and I think that was kind of where my parents got. And, so by 16, I was in my first treatment center. I went to Butler Hospital, 16 years old. And,
Yep.
I had to be sober in high school. And I remember going through high school. And then I got sober like the end of my junior year. And the principal came up to me at the end of the year, and he was just like, wow, like, I haven't seen you in 6 months or whatever it was, 4 months. You haven't been in my office. You haven't been in trouble. What's changed? And I said, I got sober.
And did he look at you like,
And
what
he's
the
like,
hell are you
what's a
talking
16-year-old kid telling him he's sober?
Yeah.
He's like, what do you even mean? And I said, well, I quit drinking. And at that time I was already into recreational drugs. And he was just like, he didn't know what to say. He just looked at me, just keep doing that. It worked out pretty good for you.
Now, let me stop you for a sec. As a 16-year-old kid, where did you get the alcohol from?
Oh, I don't know. It was
Anywhere and everywhere,
Yeah,
probably,
back
right?
then we would like camp outside of the gas station and pull. We'd call it a hey buddy. You would just wait for somebody
Yep.
to come in a beat up truck and be like, hey pal,
Yeah, I
you
got
might
20
get us a
bucks.
30. We'll give you $20 for a $13 30 rack.
Yep.
And can we get 2 of them? And that was just kind of how it went.
Okay.
I think that's
Yep.
pretty much how we would get it for the most part.
Now, looking back at it as well, obviously you had a problem, but tell me about your friend group, knowing nothing about addiction and recovery and probably being ignorant to it. Do you think they were a bigger influence on you? Do you think you were more of an influence on them? Tell me about these groups that you probably associated and did a lot of the same stuff that you did with.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's. I've always found it ironic that I went to the school system, small town, and the same kids that we made friends in kindergarten were the exact same friends that we were all partying with in high school.
Yep.
Somehow, some way, we all sniffed each other out in kindergarten.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think. I don't know as much as I was. I definitely wasn't the leader of the pack and finding new ways of getting in trouble.
Yep.
But I think we all just kind of badly influenced each other, and I don't know. It was just something that we all just kind of try to find a way. Whoever could do it that week, or this is
Yeah.
your turn and my turn, and it was never really like. Yeah, I guess looking back on it, I was more of a follower than a leader for sure.
Yeah.
And-
Well,
and-
the reason I ask is, as a parent, I think of all the time of the nature versus nurture,
Yeah.
right? And, in that situation, if you had a different friend group that maybe was interested in Pokemon cards,
right.
as maybe a little more of a follower, maybe in between, not a leader, but not a full follower, would you have gone down a slightly different path? Or was it inherently in your bones that you had this group of kindergarten kids that maybe Pokemon was your commonality, but the way that alcohol made you feel, you would have maybe gravitated to another group at that time
Yeah.
who did that, right? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, I think, I had some good friends, like good kids. I think that the alcohol experience and the being able to escape, reality for whatever reason it was more attractive to me. So I did a lot of double living for a while because I
Sure.
had friends that weren't into that.
Gotcha.
But I liked hanging out with the friends who were into that more. So I think they just started hanging out less and less with the other kids.
Sure.
So I think that was just, I honestly believe I was born with alcoholism
Yeah.
in my bones because right from the jump, I laugh and say that my first drug of choice was Legos. I used Legos addictively at 6 years old.
Yep.
I would block out the world if some fight was going on at home or I was feeling uncomfortable about something.
Yep.
There was always a new town, a new city, a new plane, a new figure I could make.
Yep.
In my room, I'd shut the door, and then that was like, in my mind, looking at it, that was like addictively using Legos.
Yeah,
And
you're absolutely right.
so I honestly think that it was just my nature, and
That you would have found it and it would have found you no
I would
matter
have
what.
found it, and it would have found me no matter
Yeah.
what. Right from the jump, I just knew. I didn't know it at the time. Like, hey, I'm going to be an alcoholic
Yeah.
now.
Let's go.
But I think that that feeling was way too strong for me to be able to just say no to the next one.
Gotcha. Okay. And then so you've obviously you battled with that a little bit, but so tell me about the process of sobriety. And tell me how long you've been sober for now, and tell me what that process was of I guess maybe if you don't mind delving into the rock bottom that everybody talks about, that kind of got you the kick in the ass to, hey, let me get this all straightened out.
Yeah, so I have been sober now for 14 years. I got
Congratulations.
February of 2009, I got clean and sober. It was February of 2009 was a pretty ugly time in my life. I would have said that I hit rock bottom in 2001.
And you were just at the bottom for
And
8
I
years?
just stayed at the bottom. What I've learned is that the rock bottom has trap doors.
Oh, okay.
And you can just, even, you'll just keep going.
Get a little deeper and deeper.
It just
and
keeps
deeper.
getting a little deeper. And I found that to be true. In 2001, I had my house raided, actually, by the friendly police of Rhode Island. So
I don't know if
shout
I know
out
this
to them.
story.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, probably not. So that was a moment where I got arrested for possession of marijuana, but it was a subsequent offense, and now I'm in the big boy courts.
Okay.
And so I was looking at some serious time, and they, I remember going in there without a lawyer, and the judge had said, "Did you bring your attorney?" And I said, "No, sir. I'm going to represent myself." And this is Superior Court now.
Yeah,
and,
this is like real court.
Yeah, this is real court, And he said, "Oh, did you happen to bring a toothbrush with you today?" And I said, "No, sir, I didn't." And he said, "I suggest you get an attorney." And I said, "Oh, good idea." So I did, but I ended up that was the first time I ended up in treatment, for myself, I guess, was in a sober living house.
Was that part of that court?
That was part of that
Gotcha.
court. That
Yep.
was stipulated. I had to do 2 years suspended sentence for 2 years and get myself involved in recovery. And so that was what I thought was my bottom. But what happened was I did what I was supposed to do, and I got off the probation. But once I was let back off, I decided to go back out and try it again.
Sure.
So that led to just living the same way all over again. And honestly, the next bottom when I got sober wasn't quite as bad as the first bottom. It was just, I don't know, it was just, to me, it just felt like I was just out of gas. The first one, I still had a lot of gas left in the tank.
You're
and
just
I was
exhausted.
just waiting my time. And the second time, it was just exhaustion of
Mental and physical
trying to
exhaustion.
figure out where I'm living, eating, breathing, sleeping,
Yep.
all that stuff. It just wears you down.
Mm-hmm.
And so in February of that year, I remember my mom finally getting me on the phone. She had been calling and calling and calling because she knew whenever Adam's not answering the phone at that time of my life,
He's up to trouble.
I'm up to no good.
Yeah.
And so she found out that she finally got me on the phone. And I just remember, and I can get emotional. I might be the first person to cry on your podcast,
okay.
but she just said to me,
Yeah. You're
was
okay, right?
"You're alive."
Yeah.
And that's what she said. And I was, of course, at that time, of course I'm alive.
I'm
You're
fine,
so
Mom.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
you
you're being crazy.
You're being crazy again, Mom. Like, I'm fine, but like she just couldn't say anything except just that my son's alive. And I just remember that feeling when I hung up the phone, just thinking, man, I'm not just hurting myself.
Sure.
I'm hurting a lot of people. And
Did that bring you back at all to when you were 16? You said, "Hey, I don't want to hurt my mom or my family," and then kind of the same moment again, however many years later.
I don't know if I was at that point was like I'm hurting my mom's feelings, but it was the same kind of thing. Of just like I'm affecting other people. As
Yeah.
much as I try to convince myself that like leave me alone, I'm only hurting myself.
Yep.
My mom was sitting there wondering probably for months if
yeah.
I was still alive or when the phone was going to ring.
Yep.
That, they found me dead somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little bit of an eye-opening experience for me. And then she just said to me, she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm trying to fix my life." She said, "You're dying." And that was another gut shot. Those two, that sigh and her telling me like you're dying, and me having no like excuse and just saying, "Yeah, you're right." And so that's the moment that I said, let me come back. I was living away, and I said, let me come back home and try sobriety again. I remember I went back to her house. I was going to stay with her for like a couple weeks, and she found me in her medicine cabinet. And that's not something I'm proud of, but that's just the way that it went. 2 days later, she got out of bed. She caught me in her medicine cabinet. Like, what are you doing? I'm the last person you have that's
Yep.
going to let you in their house, and you're stealing from me, And so right from that day, I went right into sober living, and I moved into a sober house in North Attleboro, Mass. and met with the director there and just kind of said, like, I don't know how many times I got to do this, man. Like, I've been trying to get sober since I'm 16.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, till it works. You just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm tired. He said, well, why don't you make it work?
Yeah.
You know? When was the last time you put any effort into it? When was the last time you didn't just exist in one of these places and just do the bare minimum and skate by and then go on your merry way? And I was like, that's what I've done every time.
Yeah.
So, you know, he just said, well, let's figure out a plan for you to do some work on yourself and figure out, you know, what's going wrong here in your life and take some action and
Yeah.
make it work.
Was it, so I don't know much about the process. I know the steps. Was it bigger that you finally realized you were hurting and killing yourself, or was it bigger that the impact you were having on the other people around you? Which one was, maybe they were equal, which one was bigger?
I think that honestly, the impact of people around me was what really made me want to change.
Yeah.
That was the first point in my life where, like, metaphorically, I felt like I turned around and my whole life was just ashes. It was just a burning field of grass.
Sure.
And I was like, wow.
Just left a wake of.
Wow, look at the damage I just did. And with that, I knew it was all because drugs and alcohol caused it. I caused it, but it was with drugs and alcohol. Like, that's where I'm capable of getting to in life with drugs and alcohol. It's just a burning field of grass. And that was like, okay, this is a problem in my life that I really need to take a look at and start to tackle. And just knowing, like, the ripple effect I had of hurting people. You know, my sister was having nightmares about that I died, and she'd call me and say, you know, are you alive? I'm like, oh, of course I'm alive. Like, it's just a dream, you know.
Yeah.
But like, it was close to being a reality. And so that was kind of my way. At that time, I was just like, look, I don't know what I can do except show these people that I'm trying. You know, like, I want them to be able to look at me and say, like, he's giving it his best effort.
Yep.
And I felt like if I could do that, that was like the only type of amends at that point in my life that I could really make. Like, hey, this got my attention. What I did to everybody's gotten my attention enough where I'm going to put in like 100% effort. I don't know if it's going to work.
Yep.
But at least you can't say, like, there's a new Taylor Swift song, or not even new, but it's funny, Catherine laughs, and I'm a little T Swiftie fan, but she's got a song that says, "This is me trying." And, like, just being able to show up in your door and be like, hey, like, I gave it my best. Like, this is my best. Take it or leave it. It's not always great, but, like, this is honestly my best effort at recovery. You guys have been asking me to do this now for 13 years.
Yeah.
Here it is. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So be it. I'm going to go about my life and just wither away somewhere in the corner. But, you know, I'm not going to have any stone left unturned.
Yeah. And you weren't giving it your best up until that point.
I had never given it anything.
Gotcha.
I wasn't even giving it my quarter best.
Yeah.
You know, I was just there until you stopped watching. I was there until the attention got on me, off of me, and long enough where I would say, "Oh, nobody's looking? Okay, I can get away with a little this, a little that."
Yeah.
But nobody was looking.
Gotcha.
Nobody's even looking at me anymore. You know, I was not hurting anybody's feelings anymore, really. They would just accepted the fact that I was the way that I was.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to do that hard enough and long enough where people said, "Oh, wow, like we do mean something to him because of the changes that I can see that he's making."
Yeah. So give me a timestamp. How old are you? What year is this? Where are you at?
That was 2009. I had just turned 30 the day that I got into this sober house. Because I was with my mom for a little
Your
while.
birthday.
For my birthday.
Happy birthday
my
to me.
30th birthday, I wanted to blow my brains out. I don't know if I could say that on the
You
podcast.
could say it, yeah.
But I literally was at that point where I was definitely have mental illness. Like, I knew what it was like to not want to wake up the next day.
Gotcha.
Because I was like, I can't believe I'm turning 30 in a freaking sober house. And they had a cake.
That was probably a sobering moment.
That was a sobering moment, yeah.
At the sober
At
house.
the sober house, yeah. It was a cake. So they had gotten me a cake in it and stuff, and, like, I was just so
A rum
furious.
cake?
It wasn't rum, no. It was. I don't even know what kind of cake it was. I didn't eat it, but I was so upset and just so distraught. And so that was the day that I turned 30, and I had like 10 days sober or 2 weeks sober at that point in my life, and. Lo and behold, me putting in my best effort towards recovery, I haven't drank since.
Yeah.
you know. And
So that day, your 30th birthday.
yeah, 2 weeks before,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the 26th of February was when I got sober, and I haven't found it necessary yet to drink or drug since. And you know, I would have told you at that time, like, I'm going to give it my best effort so that you can see, so you know that I'm trying my best and I'm still drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my goal.
Gotcha.
You know,
Yep.
I didn't want you to be able to put your finger on any point in my life, being like, well, you're drinking again because you're still doing this.
Sure.
I'm not doing that now, but I'm
Mhm.
still drinking.
Yep.
But lo and behold, it didn't happen.
Mhm.
You know, I'm still sober, and you know, it just required a lot of work. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. And when they try to get sober and they just want to exist and hang out and catch it by osmosis and
Yeah.
think that, well, because I'm hanging, like you were talking about earlier, like, because all my friends are sober, I'm going to be sober. I don't think it works like that.
Gotcha.
It's like, if my friends are doing the work and I'm not, I can't expect to get the same results that
Yes.
they are. Right.
How looking back at it, was it easier than you thought? Was it harder? Like, how hard is it?
It was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't so hard to quit. It was very hard to stay
To
quit,
keep, to stay.
you know.
Mhm.
And so that's what I really needed to work on, was like, how do I not give up every 3 days?
Mm.
You know, I've quit smoking, and for me, quitting smoking was easier than stopping drinking and drugging. Like, I would just, like, would pull me back in time after time after time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was much easier once into the program. They'll say that it's surrendering, right? Once I just laid down my weapons
Gotcha.
and I said, I'm here, I need to stay here. What do I need to do?
Mm-hmm.
And then doing what people told me to do. That was my issue. Was people would tell me what to do, and I'd say, "Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah, you think you know better, right?
what's this?
I know what to do.
Yeah,
I know
what to do." So, you know, once I just started listening to other people, taking other people's advice, you know, becoming honest with people. Like, if I messed up, I told people I messed up, and it wasn't necessarily drinking, but there's a lot that goes to it. You know, it's living a good, clean life. It's, you know, if I pocketed a soda from the store down the street, it's getting honest and going back and paying for it, and telling somebody, hey, I screwed up today, man. I just, you know, I lifted a soda from the store down the street.
Yep.
You know, and just doing that kind of stuff, and that was the hardest part for me, is just being an open book
Mm-hmm.
with people for the first time in my life. But it turned out that, you know, the open book version of me, people like much more. As much as I
I think he's pretty great.
I think the closed book was like safe, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh, if they ever really saw what was under the covers, I'd be, you know, nobody would want to talk.
Nobody
to
would
me.
like you, right? Nobody would want to hang
And then it turned out to be just the opposite, which is wild.
Yeah.
You know, mind blowing experience for me.
That's a very interesting take. So now when you do things, like you take on a new challenge in whatever you're doing, you've got a family, you've got a wife, you've got a really cool business that you do. Do you feel that things in life are easy now? Or do you compare it to, hey, this challenge and thing that I overcame, or like, you know what? I can do anything, man. I can take on anything. Do you feel that way?
I do feel that way. I feel like there's nothing that I can't accomplish now.
Mhm.
You know, if doing what I've done for as long as I've done it, being successful at it. I mean, there's obviously some things that I'm never going to be able to do, but you know, I don't. There's never a time that I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. You know, I know that if I put my mind to something now, I can do it. And just me wanting to do it isn't going to get it done.
Mhm.
You know, I know that I can put in the work today
Yeah.
to make it happen if I want to. You know,
Yeah.
me just wanting it to happen or wishing it happened, doesn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
But I think nowadays, I think that I can definitely push through and do whatever I want to do.
Yeah. I never had the pleasure of meeting unsober Adam,
No.
but I know sober Adam, and I would have to think, again, you could tell me if I'm wrong, that maybe looking back at it, you certainly, in every way possible, would not be the person you are today if you didn't go through all that stuff.
No, 1,000%. You know, I wouldn't change any of it. You know, and I say that a lot. As much as it hurts, and a lot of people got hurt along the way, and I don't know if there's anybody in my life that would change anything about my story either. Just going through what I went through, made me try as hard as I did. You know, and there's, you know, I see a lot of times now where the younger generation has like I don't know, some sort of support that catches them before they hit the ground.
Yes.
and
That's for damn sure.
they're constantly coddled, and like parents are afraid of, you know, living in the way that my mom lived. You know, I mean, my mom, is as crazy as it was, and as much as she was hurt, she was saying, "You are not welcome to live here." You know, I was not allowed in the house to live with her if I was going to be using, and she just said, "You need to go figure it out."
Yeah.
And I did, and I realized, I figured out I couldn't figure it out. But you know, there's a lot of that today where people don't necessarily have the consequences.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, you know, families and wives that take their husband back time after time after time, where it's like, you know what, let them figure it out.
Sure.
Let it hurt. You know, it's scary. It's a scary place to be because of the risks involved.
Well, I mean, again, as a parent, imagine the hurt. Imagine your mother, right? Imagine you know the consequence of it. Imagine having to do that to your son or daughter today.
Yes.
How hard, as hard as it was for you,
Right.
I'm sure you've thought about that. Imagine how hard that was for your mom to say, you can't come back in my house.
Ah,
Right?
Yeah, and I always
Crazy.
tell people now, because I do a lot of, consulting's the wrong word, but talking with people and families, and like, you know, I feel like I have something inside of me that's supposed to be helping families of the addict. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm still trying to figure that out. But when I do talk to moms or relatives or, you know, wives, husbands, whatever, and I always say, if Nancy Casey can kick me out of the house, you can too.
Yeah.
There's nobody that hurt more than my mom. I mean, I was a mama's boy. I was, you know, her little baby.
Yep.
And if she was able to do that, you cannot convince me that you can't.
Yep.
Because, you know, if she could do it, anyone can do it. And so I think that's a lot of the time is we have these nets in place. And I don't know if I mean, it's a good thing when these kids end up in treatment from court and stuff like that. Like, it's better than the alternative, but it also softens the blow
Yeah.
a lot of times.
Sure.
Where people just kind of, you can get stuck in mediocrity, where it's just a revolving door and you never actually hit the bottom and then fall through a couple trap doors.
Gotcha. That's
You
a
know,
great analogy. And I think if you were sober your whole life, you maybe wouldn't have been able to push yourself to be as successful or the best version of yourself that you are today, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I don't think that I would have. I mean, I was always, you know, gung-ho and worked hard and did what I had to do, but I don't think that I would have had the confidence in myself.
Yeah.
You know, if I hadn't gone through where I came from. You know, there was a while in my recovery that I would say, hey, man, this sucks, right? I should be here, or kids that I graduated are here.
Yep. Comparing yourself to people.
And what I needed to do was take a look at, like, where did I start? You know, where was I that day when I turned around and that grass was a burning field? Start there.
Yeah.
And where have you come from there? And then it's like, oh, wow, you know, I could do a lot. So I think that for me really puts things into perspective. And if I get hung up on a challenge in my life, I look back and just say, man, you've came from there, from absolutely nothing to here.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, is what really drives me.
Yeah. I think that's an amazing story. You should be very, very, very proud of yourself.
Yeah, you know, it's been, you know, I feel fortunate and blessed for sure. You know, sadly, there's a lot of people that don't have the same kind of story as me, and my heart goes out to those people, and those are more people that I would try just as hard for. You know, I want those people to see me working as hard as I do, being like, he gets it. Like, you know, I work hard for them too, and I have I've been to a lot of wakes. You know, a lot of wakes, and every single one of them, I just, you know, I carry them with me, and I just say, come on, like, I'm going to show you, like, this didn't happen for nothing. It's if nothing else, it sparked me to try even harder.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's transition to not maybe a more exciting topic, but your professional success. And I also think, going back to your childhood and your adoption, you have a really, I think, crazy unique story of meeting and working with your real birth father. So tell me about that. Give me another timestamp. You're sober. You're now trying to figure out, hey, what am I going to do with myself, right?
Yeah.
And so how did you come about meeting your birth father and then take me into the infancy of your business today and tell me all about your business and what you guys do?
So basically, where do we go back to? So, you know, being adopted, you know, you always knew something, you know, people were out there somewhere that made me, you know, so I'm like, that's always, most people don't even have that experience, you know. So I was almost to the day, just after I got my 1-year medallion.
Okay. So 2010.
So 2010, like it was my birthday coming up again. Right now I'm 31, and I get a Facebook message from somebody that just said, "Hey, this is my name. Here's where I live. You might have some questions about, where you came from or medical history that I can answer." Didn't come out and say like, "Hey, I'm your biological father," but because I think he wasn't positive it was me that he was reaching out to, but he knew my name and stuff, so he had just kind of said, "Love to get in touch and chat if you're interested. If not, no hard feelings. I just want to let you know I'm available in case you want that experience." And so, I sat on it for, an hour probably. And I remember just thinking like, whoa, that's my biological father. It has to be.
Yeah, you knew it right away.
It has to be, and I'm like, this is crazy. And so I ended up writing back, just saying, hey, I'm interested in chatting, here's my number. And he called me right away.
Like
So,
you
like,
sent it?
I sent it, yeah, I don't
later.
even, it seemed like 5 minutes later, he called me back, and we ended up just like talking for an hour and a half on the phone of just like my journey up until that point, and I just let him know, and I'm like, man, you really lucked out. I just got a year sober, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. You've gotten a much better version of me on the phone than if you talked to me a year ago.
Gotcha.
So, it was just like to me, it was a God thing that it was just like the timing was right. I was in a good place. And then, so he just kind of said, hey, maybe we could get together for lunch. And I said, yeah, that'd be cool. Definitely open to that. I had met my biological mom when I was 18, and I was really heavy into using and clubs. And it was like, I probably had to be woken up at 2 p.m, even just to go to lunch with her.
Sure.
And it was just a bad experience. And so I kind of told him that, and I'm like, look, I'm not looking I don't have any holes to fill.
Yeah.
I have a dad, I have a mom, I have a family, siblings, I love them to death. They love me to death. Like, there's no room in my heart for that at this point in my life.
Yep.
Like, I have no holes to fill. And he goes, well, good, because I have no holes to fill. I have a family, I have kids. And that was important to me. You let it stay on my terms, and I didn't feel like I owed him anything,
Yeah.
and that was a good feeling for me. And that was kind of a safe space and a safe way to go about it for me. And so we said, yeah, we'll get together for lunch. And then we didn't, typical guys.
Yeah. I'll call you next week.
Yeah, I'll call you next week. We'll go to dinner and it'll be great. And then, it's 3 months go by. And he'd message just saying, hey, no pressure. Just wanting to let you know I'm still available. I'm still willing to meet if you want. If you don't, no problem. And I said, yeah, it's just busy. My life's busy.
Yep.
I didn't have a huge urge to do it, to be honest, at the time.
If it was convenient, great, but
Yeah. Yeah, it was just more of a cool story, And so I ended up, we didn't get together, but, now at this point I'm like Facebook stalking him and looking at all his pictures.
Sure.
Showing my mom pictures of his kids, and she thought some of them were me because they looked just like me when I was younger. And so we went, I don't know, I guess it was probably, that was March, and I bet you must have been sometime like late fall, early winter. And I went to a meeting, and so I'm sitting there in the meeting, and I look up in the speaker. I'm like, that guy looks familiar. And I looked at the guy, so I'm thinking, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I pull up my Facebook, and I'm looking through all the pictures again of my biological father, and I see the picture of the old guys talking from the podium. And I'm like, that's my grandfather. That's crazy. So I look at the kid next to me, and I'm like, hey, is this the picture of the guy
is this
speaking?
guy?
Does it look like him? And he's like, yeah, why do you have a picture of him on your phone? And I said, that's my biological grandfather. And he's like, get out of here. I'm like, I've never met him in my life. Like, I've never even been in, like, I never even thought of that angle.
Yeah.
Like I knew Dan, my biological father, had told me that his dad had quit drinking. So I knew he was like in the program. So, but I didn't know he was coming to that meeting that night.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden he gets down, he goes to get a cup of coffee, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go introduce myself, And I should have, he's getting his coffee, and I tapped him on the shoulder. He looked at me, he goes, hey, how you doing? I'm Bill. I said, hey, I'm Adam. And he goes, nice to meet you. And I said, nice to meet you too. And I said, I'm the baby that your son gave up for adoption 31 years ago.
Holy shit.
And
What was that? What was his face?
he was like shaking.
Wow.
I should have waited for him to sit down, honestly, because he was in his 80s.
He was old.
He was older,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't know if he was going to drop to the
Yeah.
floor, And then he just gave me the biggest hug,
Wow.
and he just said, "What a miracle," And I just thought, like, of all places to meet him was at a meeting for recovery.
Yeah.
And, I was sober and he was sober. So then I took a picture of him and we sent it to Dan. And I just said, hey.
So just out of the blue, you sent it to him.
Well, I had originally asked him permission. I said, hey, does your dad even know? I wanted to make sure that, like, I didn't want to
Oh yeah, that he
drop
was,
the
yeah.
surprise that he never even knew I existed,
Yeah.
because it could have been
Yeah.
easy for that to happen. So he just said, oh, yeah,
That
no,
may
he knows.
be beyond my abilities at the moment.
He knows the whole story, and so that's what I did. And I went up to him. We took a picture, and I sent it to Dan, and I just said, I think we're supposed to meet. I just bumped into your dad at
Yeah.
a meeting, and we got along really good. And I said, I bet you never thought you'd see this picture.
Wow, that's
You know?
pretty cool.
So it was pretty cool. And then pretty soon after that, we ended up meeting for lunch.
Uh-huh.
And then at the time, he was selling online, and I was working at a gym. Just it was like my get well job that had moved up into sales. So I was doing sales at the gym, and he was selling online on eBay. I had never heard of that, and so he was like selling shoes on eBay. And so part of our like early on getting together would be like, hey, can you come with me shopping to buy some shoes? That
You're
I'm gonna
probably
sell
like,
on
this isn't
eBay?"
a real job.
I was
by
like,
the
this
way.
is a job? Like, how do you do that? And so, they would limit him to 15 pairs or 12 pairs of shoes at the time. But if he brought someone with him, then he could get 24, So I was worth it to him. He said, hey, I'll give you $5 a pair. Just come shopping with me. And then, some of the places got a little further, and we got to, hang out a little longer and talk. And then I remember he asked me to work like part-time. Do you want to come ship these shoes to the customers? You know how to shop them now. Do you want to ship them to people? And I said, yeah, I'll do that. So I would do that before I would go into work part-time. And I started shipping all the shoes to customers. And I think he kind of noticed, like, hey, this kid kind of has it, like, the same. It's in his blood, too,
Yep.
and because I got all into it. And now I'm looking at other stores for him. And I'm like, hey, you ever check out this store? They have good sales here. And so it wasn't too long I did that, and then he just kind of said, are you interested in doing this full time? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I got this great gig over here. To me, I was, selling memberships to a gym was a good gig.
Yeah.
And so I had to talk to my now wife. She was a girlfriend in the picture at the time, and I just kind of ran things by her because, I agreed to be open and honest with her with all my decisions when we got together, and I wanted to, honor that. And so I just kind of said, hey, this is an opportunity that presented itself. I don't know. And she just said, well, if you want to do it, do it. And so then I went to my dad. Of course, I wanted to check with him, and I'm like, hey, this is an opportunity. I'm obviously going to spend a lot of time with him. If that threatens you, I understand.
Yep.
I don't want to go behind your back, or if it bothers you, like, tell me now. And he's like, you're 32 years old, Adam. Like, if you don't know who your dad is by now, like.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, no, that's like 100%. I'm confident. If I wasn't confident in that relationship
Yep.
already, then it would have been a harder conversation. But we just kind of, and he was like, yeah, go for it. Sounds like a cool opportunity. So that's what I did. And so we just started doing that full time, selling shoes on eBay. And, we started getting into the 50 orders a day, 100 orders a day, 150 orders a day. And it just started blowing up. And then we found Amazon. And so then we took the same shoes that were on eBay and moved them over to Amazon, and it just exploded. There was just so much more traffic
Yep.
on Amazon. So we just kind of ran with that for a long time. And that's kind of where it started. And now we're full-time sellers on Amazon, and we have an Amazon store that, sells a lot of stuff and employs people, and it's given us all a life. And, it's grown a lot from where we were. We're no longer like buying 12 pairs of shoes in a store. We're manufacturing products, importing products, and designing products and launching products on Amazon and building brands, really, is what we're kind of designed to do now.
Yeah.
So it's become a career opportunity that I didn't see coming when I started, shopping for shoes in the store. But we've we like the same person. Dan and I are like the same person, which is cool. Like I've never been with somebody who was just like me. You know, for up until that point in my life, I'd never been around anybody who looked like me. You know, little things like that people don't realize. Like when I had kids, that was the first time I had a family member that looked like me.
Sure.
You know, I'm like, wow, somebody looks like me in my family. It's so weird. But so we just really gelled off the bat, and now we're really just like really good friends.
Yeah.
You know, like I love him, he loves me. We're just solid, like just like best of friends or brothers almost. You know, and it's just become a really cool situation. That you know, a lot, again, I know I'm blessed. I know there's a lot of people that have experiences like me that didn't end up in the same spot.
Yeah.
You know.
Let's delve into the business a little bit more. So you were selling on eBay, and you tell me, what was the transition to Amazon scary, exciting? Because what everybody knows from Amazon today, even 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't, right? And so how did you transition? I think you have this crazy knack to dive in and to really submerge yourself into these things and learn everything about it. So what was it like? You know, however big or small the business was, you guys had this really cool little niche on eBay with sneakers.
Yeah.
And now you're going to go to what today is the biggest platform in the world.
Right.
You got Amazon, you got Google, Apple. Those are pretty much
That's
the
it.
big boys, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like? How did you guys make that decision?
It's funny because we were selling on eBay, and we were selling over $1 million on eBay. And back then, that was 2014. That was a pretty high arc, a high target for us. And we were there, and we were happy on eBay. And then we realized what happened was somebody was buying a specific shoe from us that we could replenish. Like we knew we could go to a store and get it as many as we needed at any time we wanted. But they were buying, the same person was buying the shoe over and over and over and over again. And they kept saying, do not include an invoice with this package. Do not include an invoice with this package. I'm like, what is going on? This guy's buying 8, 9 pairs of these a day, and they're all going to different people. So I was like, this is the weirdest thing. So we did it for a couple of weeks, and then finally we were like, who is this guy? Right? And I'm like, who is this guy? So I looked up his name on Google, and it attached him to a link that linked him back to his Amazon store. And I'm like, so I looked at his Amazon store, and he was selling that shoe for $40 more than he was paying for us.
So you were buying it, give me some ballpark numbers. You were buying the shoe for what?
So say we were buying it for $50,
Okay.
we were selling it for $100. And
He
happy.
was selling it for $140.
And he was selling it for $140.
So he was using you as a middleman. As a
So what
drop
we learned is it's called drop shipping.
ship.
So you list other people's inventory at a markup and sell it. And if anybody buys it, you buy it from us and ship it to them. And I was like,
And you had never even thought or heard or seen anything like
the
this?
last we knew about Amazon was that they weren't accepting new shoes and clothes. They weren't accepting new sellers in the shoes and clothing category for
Okay.
a long time. So this was kind of new to them. Even in our heads, it was always like, you can't do that because they're not accepting these types of sellers. So, but it was at that point we're like, you know what? Let's look into this because this guy's doing it. And so I had never seen anything like it. I didn't know that was even a thing. So
You're like,
the
oh, by the
rate
way,
that they were buying them was, we would sell 1 or 2 of those a day, and this guy's buying 8.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, there's an extra $50 right there for it. We could double.
Yeah, and
Double
I
our
said,
profit.
What kind of traffic is this? So I said, well, let's apply and just see what happens. And so we knew right when we got on there that the opportunity was great. We laughed because we had a big warehouse, and we made one little office, the Amazon office, right? We just put a couple shoes on Amazon. And I said, imagine if someday this becomes the eBay office and the rest of this is Amazon.
That's what-
And we laughed, And now we have like a eBay like shelf, and we have 6,000 square foot warehouse with Amazon.
Yep.
But it wasn't really that scary at the time because we just could see the traffic going on there, and the prices that we were selling the same shoes for were way more on Amazon. And that's what we did. So it was more excitement. It was just like, wow, we got like a rep that this was September, I think, and the guy says, we're gonna have you live on Amazon by January 1st, and we're like, in the middle of the fourth quarter, there's no way. Sure enough, January 5th, we went live in 2015 on Amazon, and instantly, it was 3-to-1 sales the very first year of what we did on eBay compared to Amazon. So, and at that point, we learned about the FBA program where what they do is like you can buy all this product and send it to Amazon.
Yep.
They house it in their million square foot warehouses, and then when a customer buys it, they ship it. So we used to have 300 packages going out every day that I was putting labels on.
Yeah, you were best friends with the UPS, the FedEx,
Oh
and the
yeah,
USPS
all those
guy,
guys,
right?
yeah. And so they, when we heard of that, and I'm like, there's no way. I don't have to ship any
They're going to
products.
store all the stuff for us?
So it was like a no-brainer. We just sent all our product to Amazon
Yep.
and just let them run with it. And so, we never looked back. Yeah, really. I mean, we've kept the eBay store alive, but it's not much on there anymore. I mean, there's definitely people that make a living selling on eBay for sure. I mean, e-commerce sales is just an opportunity that I get excited about. And, I like you said, I've dove in, I've learned all the aspects of it. And it's just become fun for me. Like, that's just something that I would do, as a hobby, then I do it on my off time sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just fun to me.
Could you imagine doing anything else now?
I don't think so.
Like,
No, I
so
don't
you
think
met
so.
your dad and he's like, I'm into collecting rocks. Do you think somewhere that you would have now delved into this rock thing? Like,
I mean, if it was making money,
Yeah.
if he was like, hey, we're killing it selling rocks.
We're selling
I'll
rocks.
sell rocks,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want me to sell these hats, I'll sell these hats. I don't care what it is. But, if he was just into like looking at them through a microscope, I don't know that I would have been like, yeah. I'd be like, yeah, that's your thing. I'm not really into that. But at the time, I was into shoes anyway. So it was kind of funny that
Sure.
he sold shoes. And then I was like, in the gym looking at everybody's shoes already. So it was a good transition. If it was, if he was selling rocks at that time, I don't know that I would have been as interested. But if
Yeah.
he's like, hey, I'm making this much money doing it, I'd be like, oh, yeah, let's take a look.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure.
And now tell me this kind of new venture you're getting into that I know very little about, but I'm going to call it maybe an educational coaching aspect. And I think you've done that a lot. You've talked about through your sobriety and talking to a lot of people. I think that's a really amazing skill you have, is like talking, conveying, and helping people in any
Yeah.
aspect. So tell me kind of this little venture that you're taking on.
The venture is basically we found like for a long time we sold all by ourselves on Amazon and eBay. Just us. Didn't a question came up, we just figured it out.
Yep.
We had no idea. We did it wrong 6 times. We finally realized, well, this is the way to do that. We found a group of online people conversing and helping each other about learning how to avoid the pitfalls. What kind of packaging do you use? Who do you ship with? How do you get cheaper shipping rates? What are your processes in place for employees, and how do you handle X, Y, and Z? And we were like, wow, people are so open about this. Like, it was always just our little secret.
Yeah.
And it was like my first. I guess it wasn't my first, but it was my first experience with the abundance mentality was in AA, right? Where people just help people.
Sure.
The more you help, the more you'll be helped. Don't whatever you have, give it away for free. And then I found this
and it'll come
online
back to you
community.
tenfold,
It'll come
right?
back tenfold, right? And then this online community kind of has the same thing where they're saying, "I'm going to help you." Before, to me, it was a secret. Oh, that's an advantage that we
Yes,
know
yes.
who to ship with. I'm not going to tell everybody that. And this group was like, "No, tell everybody that."
Yep.
Because they're going to tell you something that's going to help you
Yeah.
in an area that you're struggling with. And I'm like, oh, wow, I never thought of that, And then, so this group grew up and evolved into like, a big tight-knit family of online sellers. And I've had an opportunity to become a part of that leadership team that we've developed an online selling course, which I think is out of this world. Nobody's really doing it. They can, we take it from day one to somebody who doesn't even know what they're doing, all the way up to, we have some sellers in the group that are selling, 10, 15, $20 million a year in sales. So it's just teaching you the ropes of how to sell on e-commerce, how to get into Amazon, how to source products, how to build products, how to make products. And it's just really step-by-step directions on how to do it. And so it's been great. I mean, we just launched this year. We had a really amazing turnout for people. We do a once a semester meetup where we all got together and celebrated and hung out and fellowship together and helped each other. Hey, I'm buying gift cards at a discounted rate from this site. You should check it out. And you're like, oh, cool, that's neat. We're also doing this to save money
Yep.
here. We found this store to be super beneficial to sourcing products, or watch out for this brand because they'll get you in trouble. They don't want you selling. And just sharing knowledge with each other, helping each other become better sellers on Amazon. And so it's been awesome. It's been really, really fun.
Yeah. Isn't that a weird? I feel like for some reason we all think that we want to hide and protect the things that we know and trust and like and think are special, but it's so true that the more you share with people or the more you ask for help,
Yep.
you'll be crazy surprised at how many people are like, I'll give you all the answers to the test. It's no big deal.
Right.
We're learning that in our business on a very small scale. Jim is very much like that, very close to the chat. Does
Yep.
no secrets. We're not going to be any, hey, keep it here.
Yep.
Mark and I are the opposite, and we've built up a good little network of people in our industry across the country and at trade shows, and I feel we've learned more from them
Right.
that would have taken us 10 years to figure out.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
And it's this weird, almost like conundrum phenomenon that like
It's a
you just
phenomenon.
ask
Yeah.
for help or say, hey, I'm getting these hats for this price, man. Why don't you, if that's a good value to you, go ahead, you should do it too. And you're like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's so weird. Yeah, and that was like, the first couple of years I had a really hard time with because Dan was all in on the abundance mentality. He's just like, look, here's what we buy, here's where we get it. Tell them this, use this code, and I'm like, hey, like what
Yep.
the heck, like. But the growth that we've had from that,
Yeah.
and some of it's not product material, some of it's dad advice, right? Family advice, or I'm getting to know these people because I'm opening up to them, telling them secrets or tips that I've learned along the way. And so now we become friendly. We become friends, and they're telling me about what it was like raising their teenagers. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I'm going to be raising teenagers someday.
Yeah.
And I'm going to remember this guy.
Yep.
And that's kind of how it's been with my recovery program. It was the same thing. And I always said that in that group. I'm like, this is the closest I've felt in my recovery community.
Yeah, it's the same
In
thing.
the real
right?
world, right? It doesn't happen that often. So if you can find that in whatever you're doing and share, it's amazing what comes back to you.
Jade, my wife, said this the other day, and she put it in a nice little package that made total sense to me. She said, in friendships, in business, or in life, you're going to get out what you put in, and it's based on vulnerability. The more vulnerable you are with somebody or another business, and the more transparent you are, the more you're going to get out of that, and you're going to become closer and closer and closer. If you put up the doors and there's no vulnerability business to business,
Yeah.
it's just going to be, we know Bob's pipelining over there. They're nice.
Yeah.
But you become vulnerable and you tell them the deal that you're doing or the advice that you have, and all of a sudden you grow personally and professionally, but then also you become bonded with these people, and you're like, wow, these are my people, right? This is my network in my recovery. This is my network in now my profession, and you feel so close, and you're like, there's nothing that can stop us. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And Dan had always said early on when I was always questioning him, he'd always measure it by like, what's the amount that it's going to change that person's life compared to the amount that it's going to change my life. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Right? If I can get somebody to learn how to sell on Amazon or sell on e-commerce or eBay, whatever you want to sell, and maybe break free from a job that you hate and you dread going to, and now all of a sudden you can make the same kind of income, if not more, working out of your home. But like you're become like a very minuscule competitor of mine.
Yeah.
Your exponential gain is like, it doesn't even compute in my head. It's just like so much easier to make sense of share, share, just give them the information. It's going to change their life.
Yeah.
And it's not really going to change my life.
Yep. I'm a big proponent of what I call they're my guy, or somebody being loyal to somebody. So and what I mean by that is you doing, Dan giving an hour of his time, or you signing up for your course, however that long that is. In a weird way, that person is now going to become indebted to you in the best way possible. They're going to be so loyal, and they're going to be looking out for you because of the impact you made to them. Again, 2 hours of my time to change somebody's life, to leave it. They're going to think of you as the most amazing person in the world, and they will do anything. And when you need something, and you ask a favor, they'll go, Adam, whatever you need, what can I do for you? And that's you're building up this equity within these people, and it's Adam's my guy. He helped me become what I am. That is so powerful. It's beyond words.
Yeah, no, it's you're right, and I don't even think of it as like the kickback later, but it comes.
It comes. Oh, it always
You know,
comes.
I don't think of like if I start expecting or predicting or projecting like, oh, this guy's eventually going to help me with this, I'm usually disappointed.
Yep.
But like if I just do it knowing like somehow, some way, it might not even be him. Maybe it's his cousin
Yep.
that helps me out with a car problem I have, or who knows, right?
Yep.
But it's like that person's like, hey, you know what? Help him.
Yeah.
He helped me a lot along the way, and so, that's kind of where we are with. It's called Amazing Freedom University, and that's a shameless little plug there.
Yeah, no, I
but
wanted to give me
it's,
the plug. Tell me where can somebody find it? If I'm interested in selling on eBay and I know nothing, not eBay, Amazon. Where do I go? Give me the whole.
So it's on
spiel.
amazingfreedom.com.
Okay.
So that's where we host our course there. We have a paid Facebook group for all just the chatter of questions of, I'm looking to start this, or I run into this problem, or my shipping is down, or I have some issue that I need help with. So we have a paid Facebook group where all those people in there again.
It's like a membership fee, right?
It's a membership fee, but it's somebody who just signed up for Amazon all the way up to people selling $20 million a year on Amazon.
Gotcha.
And that person's going to jump in and say, hey, I remember when that happened, do this.
Yep.
And you're like, oh my God, that just saved me a week of my time. So
Exactly.
So we do that, and then like 2 or 3 times a year we do our Amazing Freedom University, where it's a 12-week high-intensity, action-taking course where we take you right through the process of sourcing products, making products, selling them, repricing them. Inventory management basically is what it becomes. So we really have like a team of experts come on and just have tons and tons of content and videos
Gotcha.
to just really just hold your hand and walk you through the whole process.
So take me to what is actually your day-to-day involvement in this amazing Freedom University.
Amazing Freedom University. My role now is being available, helping other people, getting engagement and stuff on social media, teaching a course. My main course that I have now is we've been creating bundles of products,
Okay.
which is not new, but it's a good area that we found selling on Amazon. Is we can kind of put things together. Like maybe you want to buy this microphone and speaker.
Yep.
But instead of having to shop at 2 places, we can have a microphone, a speaker, and rechargeable batteries all in one package, right? And then so maybe this speaker could be my private label with my brand, my logo on it,
Yep.
and then I could get a good speaker and then kind of sell it under our brand.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of what we've been working on, and I made like a huge course inside the course, all about kind of making bundles of products. So we do it a lot with grocery, where we'll take all different types of, say you're a chewy candy type of guy, and we could just make a whole box of just every chewy candy you've ever loved in your life.
Okay.
And maybe Jade knows you love it, and she goes on and buys it for you for Father's Day gifts and stuff like
Okay.
that. So
Interesting.
making gift bundles and stuff is a big part of what I do, and just organizing it all, keeping it on track, and working with a team of it's like 5 type A's. We're trying to work together, so that's challenging, but fun at the same time. We're all really good friends and get along well.
Yeah.
So
My last Amazon question. What have you learned from the seller's point of the psychology of the Amazon buyer? Because to me, it's fascinating. We all know the benefits of Amazon, right? It's
Right.
quick, easy. I'm not going to say cheap because, as you know, it's not always really.
Right.
Actually, from an unknowledgeable standpoint, obviously you know way more than me. Price, I think, actually is probably one of the lower decision-making factors of somebody buying something on Amazon. Am I correct?
correct.
And so, what have you learned about? I bet you could do a course on the psychology of the buyer. Tell me, like, give me some insight of what you've learned
Yeah.
about.
I mean, we could see a lot. Amazon keeps a lot of that data hidden, but they've been releasing more and more data to us as the seller as to how many people added something to a cart and then actually purchased it, or how many
Okay.
people clicked on your coupon and then added it to their cart and then purchased it. So you can kind of watch the life cycle of a purchase.
Yep.
But people want what our main goal is when we're making products now. We have brands on Amazon that we sell products, and that Amazon sellers buyers do not get past page 1 very often, right? If it's sometimes they don't even get past the first row.
Yep.
And so what Amazon does now is usually that first row is all advertised listings. You'll see them now that say sponsored, 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 sponsored. Then there's the next person that shows up is called organically, is the first organic search result. So it's really search engine optimization that
Yep.
we deal with mostly. But if you're on page 2 you really got to be a lot cheaper because now they're really you're a real frugal shopper. But most time, people just the first one they see, they buy it. You know, regardless of price or some things. But there's so many like knockoffs and stuff that brand doesn't even really matter to people on Amazon.
I was going to ask you the next question.
We're selling sleds on Amazon that you could go buy a brand name somewhere, but they don't care on Amazon, and the sled's a sled, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, a cooler maybe you really want to, people want to get a Yeti, but they don't want to spend on it, and they get a XOLNT. They don't even make a brand.
Yeah, it looks the same.
It looks the same, acts the same. It has nice pictures. Pictures are important to Amazon buyers.
I think about the brand a lot because when I'm shopping on Amazon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the success you've had are items that, what I call a transient item that's not necessarily associated with the brand. So for instance, a sled. There are sled brands, but if I'm looking for, I'm going to type in blue saucer sled. I'm not going to type in the brand of the sled, right?
Right.
Whereas if I'm looking for Kleenex facial tissue,
Right.
you certainly can do, an Adam brand
Yep.
Kleenex facial tissue, but that's something that is very honed in and people associate an item with a brand.
Yep.
And so am I right in saying these items that we don't think about all day, spit guard speakers,
Right.
I'm sure there's a brand that makes the greatest one of these in the world, but 90% of the consumer might just type in microphone for podcasts, opposed to, again, as we know, you can buy a microphone for $5,000.
Right.
And so is that a lot of what we're doing is finding items?
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of like when we do the private label course, you never want to, I wouldn't say never, but most times, especially if it's like something you're just starting out making a product, you really want to think, is there a brand that you associate with this product?
Yeah.
Because if there's one or two, if there's 10, maybe you have an opportunity to get in there and make a better listing. But if there's like two that like, hey, when you buy a cooler, you get, Coleman or Yeti.
Yep.
You're not getting in that space. Everybody
making
instantly goes to, those two brands.
If you're making a beverage, you're not going to compete with Coke and Pepsi.
You're not going to compete with Coke and Pepsi.
Right.
You're not going to come out with a soda
Yeah.
that's going to compete.
Yeah.
But what we do is, there are opportunities in that space now that we're seasoned and we have other products going already where we have software that'll show you like, okay, so you're not in the first page. Maybe you're going to be on the second page of search results. What kind of volume do those sellers do?
Sure.
And that might still be acceptable.
Yeah, that still
but
could
the
be a good
dream of
product.
being Coca-Cola is not going to happen
Gotcha.
with soda. But
Yeah.
you might be okay with being second fiddle in some of those brands. But that's, generally speaking, if it's like you said, name recognition, people are looking for that, and then you're not going to. But that's getting less and less, really.
Yeah.
There's less things that people have to have
That's a specific brand.
that specific.
Give me some items that we might not be thinking of that maybe you're selling or manufacturing or not, to maybe put somebody who's listening in that mind space of what we're talking about. So again, we did like a sled. What are some items out there that you started to explore that people don't realize when they're typing or searching it, it's not a brand, really?
Oh, man, there's so many
There's
things.
like millions of them,
There's
isn't there?
millions of them that you don't think of. But, I mean, just, anything around the house. Or
Well, so a surge protector.
surge
Okay,
protector.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You could do there's tons of brands of surge protector, but you're going to usually type in the item,
Right.
not the brand.
Right, you're going to type in item, and as long as your specs match, which is probably the same factory making it.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just putting Atom on it instead of whatever the surge protector brand is. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. We have a better chance of naming brands nowadays that people do recognize
Opposed to things that don't.
as opposed to that they don't. And I think Amazon's had a big part of that because
Yeah.
people just buy stuff. I mean, clothes, I think, is something that it'd be very hard to get into. And
Sure.
you're not going to make a pair of sweatpants and compete with Nike and Adidas.
Yep.
But I mean, there's so many other things that you can make, and we've done like shoelaces in the past. Where like,
Again,
Who cares?
nobody.
who cares
There's
what
no
brand?
brand, yeah.
But and then in the listing, you can say fits your Nike
Yes.
shoes.
Yep. to
That's all I want to know.
appeal something.
Does this fit in my Nike shoe? Like your Nike shoe's different than a regular
Yeah.
shoe.
The holes in Nikes are
Yeah.
different.
So I mean, I think that's an area that we've done really well, and we don't sell them anymore. So I don't mind sharing about it.
Yep.
But it's something that we sold. We sold $100,000 worth of shoelaces
Yeah.
in a year.
And yeah, right, I mean when
Because it's, they're just a certain length. That's all you really need to know. I don't know. I would think even like extension cords, right?
yeah,
I mean,
that's another great one.
what do you think of when you think of extension cords? You don't think of a brand.
You're going to type in maybe a color and a length. I want a brown 8-foot extension cord for the house. I want an orange outdoor extension cord,
Yeah.
50 feet.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think that's just a big thing to avoid. Is just it is tough if brands do a really good job of branding themselves, like Coca-Cola, Pepsi.
Yeah.
I mean, those are older ones, Yeti, Stanley now with
Yep.
all those mugs.
The
You know,
cups.
to come out with a 40-ounce mug right now would be very difficult to
Yeah,
compete
the
with.
market is flooded.
The
with them.
market's flooded with.
Just look in your wife's cabinet.
I
and
get
there's 70
every
of them.
color. Yeah, my sisters too. Between the two of them, I think they keep that business afloat.
Oh, crazy. Let's wrap it up with this. You had a great childhood, a little adversity,
Yeah,
went through recovery, came out amazing, and now have this really cool business.
yeah.
You've got a great wife, you've got kids. What would you tell your younger self? What's one piece of advice? Or what would you tell, Adam, who's 21 and struggling? Hey, when you're 40-something, you're going to be here. What would you tell him?
That's a great question. Go to bed.
Don't stay up all night, every night?
Go to bed. Yeah. I don't know. Honestly, I could, depending on my mood, there's times that I would say, don't change a damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't change a thing. Just keep going.
Those experiences, as crazy as they were, the highs or the lows, made you who you are today.
Right. But I could say that being where I'm at today. If I was still in my 40s and addicted to drugs,
Yeah.
I'd probably have a different.
You probably want to change
advice.
everything.
I want to change everything.
Yeah.
So where I'm at today, I could say that I don't know. I don't know if I would change anything. If I had to see it, I mean, what blows my mind is if I could, like I went to the Red Sox game last weekend. I brought my son to his first Red Sox game at Fenway Park.
Mm-hmm.
He got to run the bases after the game. Something I've never done, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm more excited than he
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
He just thinks now that you just run the bases.
Yeah, this is
at
when you go
Fenway
to the
Park.
field. This is what you do.
This is what you do. You just run around the bases. But like that moment, I was like, I had tears in my eyes, and I blamed it on the dirt and stuff.
Yeah.
But if I could have shown my 21-year-old self that moment,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't let my 21-year-old self be. What do I need to do?
Or probably would have never believed it, right?
I wouldn't believe it. But if I'm like, hey, this is me. And I'd say, what do I need to do? I'm ready. Sign me up. There's no way. But it would just be so far-fetched that I wouldn't believe it. But, I think, if I was 21 and running amok and just knowing that, like, hey, you don't have to live this way, I think would probably be the best advice I would give myself back then. Like, you don't have to live this way. Your life doesn't have to be this hard.
Yeah.
And as many times as my dad told me that, my mom told me that, my stepmom told me that, my siblings told me that, my whole wonderful family told me that, I didn't believe them. I didn't listen to them. So that's why I struggled, being like, I don't know, if you told me anything at 21, I'm not going to listen.
Yeah.
But that would be probably the biggest thing is either one, go to bed, or two, it doesn't have to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way out.
Yeah.
And I didn't know there was a way out back then.
Yeah. I'll do one more question, too. What is your vision for the future for this amazing freedom and for your Amazon selling business? Now, what do you want to, do you want to still be doing this in 5 years? Do you want to have, a $50 million, $100 million company? Do you want to be coaching and teaching? Tell me what you really want to do in the next 5 years.
5 years? Yeah, I would say we've been talking about this a lot lately because we've doing a new software called EOS. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it really makes you have a vision for your company, a 10-year goal, 5-year goal, 1-year goal, 90-day goal. And we struggle getting past the 1 year. Right? As a company, it's very difficult because it seems far-fetched because you're like a year ago, I wouldn't have guessed I'm where I'm at now, right? Yep. So you're like, what a kind of a wasted thing. But like you do need some sort of North Pole. Mm-hmm. So I think if I had to put a target on 5-year plan, I would say that the Amazon store would be building out our brands even further. Mm-hmm. Maybe we get to the 50 million, 20, if we get to the 20 million mark in 5 years, I think that would be a pretty good goal to have. And then for the Amazon Amazing Freedom University, I just think sky's the limit. It's so hard to put our finger on it. The opportunity that we're providing for people to work out of their homes and provide for their family is just really unlimiting. Like we're starting to get now team up with some YouTube channels and stuff that are looking, people are looking to do that and get out of the 9 to 5, working for the man. Like if you can work for yourself and make a good living doing it and have fun and be at all the sports games and all that. So honestly, I don't know where I will be in 5 years, but all 5 of us, there's more of us, 7 of us really, it's 8 of us that are pushing this ship. I just think have sky's the limit for this course, and just helping, if we can help, 100,000 people break free and be able to do and support their family, working from home or on their own terms, I guess is our goal. So.
And one last plug, where can people find information about that?
So this is amazingfreedom.com. On there, you'll see the link to the Facebook group. You'll also see a link to the course. It's currently closed at the moment because we're in the middle of a semester, but we'll probably be relaunching again in the fall. So you can go there and take a look, see what we have to offer, what's included in it. And then if you're interested, just hit the little button there and it'll get you in the waiting list and signed up to come on the journey with us. And the Facebook group's great because people get exposure of what it looks like. So, amazingfreedom.com is a great place. It's a lot of resources, and I'm excited about it for sure.
You should be.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, thanks for the time today. We really appreciate it. I think your story is amazing, and a lot of people are going to love listening to it.
Thanks, John.
All right.
All right.